Hello, hello, hello. I'm HoJo.
And I'm Hunnsy.
And welcome to this, the third episode of HoJo and Hunnsy's Hard Rock House, the safe space for old rock gumbies just like us, where, unlike Kiss, we like to rock and roll up until about 11:30 at night and then party maybe once a week, depending on how much other stuff we've got on. Isn't that right, Hunnsy?
Once a week, you're having a laugh, aren't you? Once a year.
Never being ones to fly in the face of tradition, we're going to get warmed up by doing a few squat thrusts while telling you about the music we've been listening to today. So, Hunnsy, what music has been helping you to get your pump on today?
Well, today I've been listening to the latest release from the greatest heavy metal band of all time, Judas Priest. And if you haven't heard it, it is magnificent, like magnificent. First release from the album was called Panic Attack, and then there's another one called Trial by Fire. Now, I don't know whether you've heard it, HoJo, and I don't know whether you are a connoisseur of Judas Priest, but I think it is one of their best albums for many, many years, and it is a cacophony of heavy metal riffing. And of course, Mr. Halford is still, it's astonishing. It is astonishing that he is still producing vocals like he produces. It's amazing. That's what I've been listening to, and I dare you to find something better.
Well, I agree with you on the one point. It is indeed astonishing that Rob Halford has been producing that kind of singing, but not just in the fact that he's an old chap like us now, but astonishing that he's ever done it. I mean, why is the question that I ask myself. Why would you want to sound like that? And number two, how do you discover that you can shriek like a banshee across storming heavy metal music? How does that happen?
Are you asking me how?
Yeah, how? And the second question is why?
Well, okay, so how is probably through lots of vocal warm-ups, some training, and very tight trousers, I imagine. And then the why is because it's heavy metal. And I think many have tried to copy him. But Halford's range is something that all heavy metal vocalists would give their right arm or their right testicle or their vocal cords to be able to match. It's just, you just have to.
You see, this is where you and I disagree about what is at the roots of heavy metal music. I know that you are genuinely a fan of Judas Priest, but for me,
yes,
one of the things,
they're the greatest.
Well, are they really? One of the things that I find difficult with heavy metal music is the traditional idea that to be a frontman of a metal band, you have to be able to shriek like you've got your nuts caught in a mangle. And it never sat well with me. The idea of getting your nuts caught in a mangle shouldn't sit well with anyone. Yeah. But it always seemed to be that was part of the heavy metal building blocks, you know, the Lego of metal. You had to have the shrieking, and it just never sat right with me. I never liked it. Never thought it was a clever thing to do. Didn't think it was big. Didn't think it was clever. But I have to admit, there's many, many people out there, yourself included, who love that kind of thing. But if I go like this, like, ah! down the microphone to you, do you find that entertaining?
Well, no, because that was just sounded like someone who's just walked in the house and they've been burgled. That wasn't heavy metal singing.
But that's what heavy metal singing is. That kind of heavy metal singing is exactly the emotional response when you walk in and someone's burgled your house.
I know, but let's put some perspective on this. Let's look at the music. When you get the music right and the subject matter that you're writing about or the ferocity of the attack of the guitars, you don't want someone singing like fucking Ed Sheeran over it, do you? You want someone who's got that rage, and because they're singing their passion, it's almost operatic. That's the beauty of Halford, and it suits the music. You wouldn't want Rob Halford to be singing like Johnny Cash. If they're playing Exciter, you wouldn't want someone at the front going, "Stand back for Exciter," would you? You wouldn't want that. You want the music to fit the vocal and vice versa.
But isn't that what you're doing? Stand by for Exciter. Isn't that exactly what Glenn Danzig has done? He's done exactly that on heavy metal music.
I wouldn't call Danzig heavy metal, to be honest with you. We'll save that for another discussion. But let's get back to the point about Halford. I put him in the top 3 greatest heavy metal vocalists of all time. And depending on what mood I'm in, I would put him at number 1. The fact that he's still doing what he's doing and he sounds even better than he has done for many, many years. I doff my chainmail coat to him.
Well, you and I are never going to agree on this. Rob Halford is genuinely one of the loveliest men in metal. I'll give him that. He's an absolute pleasure, and interviewing him is always great fun. He loves his metal, but I think there's a little nod and a wink going on at the same time. Do you think he perhaps recognises the sheer ludicrosity of what he's doing?
I think so. Even just the way he says the words heavy metal.
How does he say it?
He says heavy metal, heavy metal, heavy metal. He was asked the question around, I think it was the British Steel tour, which obviously you've got to say it like that, British Steel, in 1980. They were being supported by Saxon. And he was asked, why did you choose Saxon as your support band for this tour? And he said, we're promoting the album British Steel, and they're promoting the album Wheels of Steel. So it's probably the most heavy metal tour of all time. And I just love that. I love the fact that he loves heavy metal, but I do think that he does it to add a little bit of comedic value to it. And I think he does love the sheer lunacy and madness of it all. So I think he does nod to that a little bit when he talks about it, yes. But that just adds to the theatre of him, doesn't it, as the ultimate metal god.
I think you're right, and it kind of fits in well with our attitude to heavy metal music. We love it, but we also understand it can be somewhat ludicrous. And I think Rob, maybe after a couple of pints, when he's loosened up a little bit, might admit that there is something of the insanely idiotic about Judas Priest. But at the same time, he loves his band, and frankly, hats off to him for that.
Has Rob ever sort of said to you that his whole motorbikes, leather, chainmail was part of an act, or does he actually really believe it? Has he ever said that to you?
It's a good question, but not one that he's ever given me the answer to. But it does lead me to tell you a great story about metal frontmen and the nod and the wink and how much they buy into the whole vibe of it. I'm sure you'll be a fan of King Diamond, aren't you? I bet you are.
Oh, yes, and obviously his work with Merciful Fate, of course, yes.
Yeah, I knew you'd be a fan of that. Obviously, I'm not a fan of that music at all. But
why are we doing this?
Well, I don't believe that you're only allowed to make a heavy metal podcast or a hard rock podcast if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Merciful Fate fan. I didn't see that in the small print when I signed up for this. But in my quest as a young Kerrang journo for the almighty dollar, I did get sent up to Copenhagen to interview King Diamond. This would be 84, 85, something like that. Got flown up to his hometown of Copenhagen. And I think I must have known this beforehand, but I didn't bat an eyelid. They said, oh, you'll be staying at King's place. You know, normally they'd put you in a hotel. They decided they were going to ask King to put me up. I can only assume that whatever indie label that Merciful Fate were on at the time didn't have a pot to piss in.
They actually called him King.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I get to Copenhagen. And he turned out to be a really nice fella, King Diamond. And we were back at his flat after the gig, and it was late at night and strong drink had been taken. And I don't think I was doing the interview. I think I'd done the interview already, but we were just chatting away. One heavy metal singer, one Gumby journalist at 3 a.m. And I'd always thought that satanic stuff in metal was also very silly. I said to King, look, all this devil worshipping stuff, it's all bollocks, isn't it? It's not, you don't believe any of that, do you? And he did go, no, I don't, but don't tell anyone. So I kept his secret all these years. This is the first time I've ever gone on record as saying that King Diamond did admit that all that satanic stuff was just a load of old bullshit.
A close personal friend of mine just happens to be Abaddon, the keeper of the seventh gates of hell, drummer of Venom. He's a good friend of mine, and I used to play football with him, and he often just went, of course we're not devil worshippers. Of course we're not.
So all of these people who have dedicated their life to Satan, we're sorry we have to tell you it was all a load of nonsense. We've done our usual. We're knee deep into the podcast, and I hadn't had a chance to tell you what I was listening to.
Okay, what have you been listening to, HoJo?
Well, you'll be surprised to hear that what I've been listening to is not really in the same realms of heavy metal music as you like to, because it's called HoJo and Hunnsy's Hard Rock House. So that gives us license to dive around all over the musical spectrum, doesn't it? I've been listening to Cheap Trick's Heaven Tonight album. Now, what's your initial reaction?
Well, it's my favourite Cheap Trick album. So I approve of your choice. Definitely.
Okay. So the reason that I've chosen Cheap Trick's Heaven Tonight is because they are a go-to group. Whenever you get your digital streaming platform up first thing in the morning, you go, what do I need? Well, I drink my cup of coffee, decide what I'm about to do in the day. It's a go-to. They never let you down. And I'm in agreement with you. Heaven Tonight is, for me, their best record. And that is saying something because they've done some classics. But Surrender is on there. High Rollers on there. Bit of a deep cut. And they were a band that managed to capture brilliant pop sensibilities with a really tough underbelly. Rick Nielsen, very underrated guitar player. Nobody ever talks about him, presumably because he looked like someone out of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, didn't he? But despite the wacky look, he was a brilliant guitar player, and I never tire of Cheap Trick. They're an absolute legend, still going strong. Seen them many times. Do you remember, actually, it's just reminded you, remember when we saw them at the Albert Hall in London, you and I? If you've never been to the Royal Albert Hall in London, it's a beautiful venue, but it's like an old style theatre, and it's very plush, lots of red velour seats everywhere. And all around the sides of the stage, there are boxes. So it's kind of like you're going to the theatre. And I can only imagine that we must have got some freebie tickets because we're, Ponce's out of the from the record business, and we got in one of those boxes, didn't we?
We did. I do remember that night now. We were in a fancy box. When we came out, we were so emotional after watching a great Cheap Trick set. We did the Scorpions Pyramid outside. I don't know why, but
yes,
we did the Scorpions Pyramid.
I do
which
remember
we often do when we're drunk.
And there are no forks available. But do you remember that we pissed Rick Nielsen off that night?
I vaguely remember shouting for a song.
I remember it very well. You can order bottles of wine to be brought to your box.
Yes, you can.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And so you and I were very much overserved that night. So when we were a little bit pissed, we'd got it into our head that we wanted them to play Mandocello. Do you remember from the first Cheap Trick album?
Yes.
And every break, we were screaming, play Mandocello! Play Mandocello!
Yeah.
And do you remember Rick Nielsen just looked at us and went, you twats.
Yeah. It's not on the set list. Shut up.
It's not on the set list, and you're drunk.
What a band. What a choice. A great choice this morning, HoJo.
So what I was thinking we should be talking about today, now that we've talked about Rob Halford and your undying love for his shrieking, I thought we should go, right, you've got one choice, right? Hard rock, heavy metal. Who is your ultimate favourite vocalist? Can only go for one.
I would say my favourite hard rock vocalist is Paul Rodgers out of Free. But my favourite heavy metal vocalist is probably Rob Halford or Eric Adams from Manowar.
Yeah, but you're flim-flamming here, Hunnsy. You're flim-flamming. I said you've got one choice.
Halford. I'm going Halford because I'm pretty sure Rob Halford's got the range that he could sing All Right Now or Come Together in the Morning by Free. It might sound different to Paul Rodgers, but I doubt Paul Rodgers could sing Free Wheel Burning. There you go.
The very idea is brilliant. I'd love to see him try.
It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? But I've got to go for Halford. Who are you going for?
My favourite vocalist of all time in the world of rock, Ian Astbury.
He is a very good vocalist. I will give you that. But I'm a bit surprised by your. I thought you would have gone for someone maybe Bon Scott or Phil Lynott or someone like that. But Astbury's a curveball for me.
Do you know why? I think that what I look for in a great rock vocalist is tone. And Ian Astbury has just got a fantastic tone to his voice that allows him to sing so many different styles as well. Ballads, rockers, alternative, more indie stuff. He's just so versatile. And I've seen the Cult many, many times live, and he's frankly, when the mood is not with him, he's one of the most frustrating vocalists out there because he's fucking lazy. He doesn't sing half the words. And that's very frustrating. But when he's on it, wow, that guy, he's got the pipes, hasn't he?
Do you think he could sing Exciter by Judas Priest?
Well, I think the reason that I like him so much is because he would never be caught dead singing Exciter by Judas Priest.
Because I'm bloody sure Rob Halford could sing Love Removal Machine. I bet it would improve that track, no doubt.
Okay, so if Rob is one of our single-digit listeners, that's the challenge we're laying down, isn't it?
Yes.
Rob has got to sing Love Removal Machine
in the style of Rob Halford. Rob Halford can sing. I'm going to use the word normally, which I shouldn't do, but Rob Halford, if you asked him to sing a good old swing song, I imagine he's got a beautiful range. I mean, you've got to have a range to sing what he is, right? If you said to him, sing Love Removal Machine, but put your spin on it, it would be amazing. What I'd like to hear Rob Halford sing, though, is Love Removal Machine in the Judas Priest style. That's what I'd like to hear.
Okay, well, there's a challenge, Rob. If you're listening, that's what we need from you, my friend. Okay, worst hard rock heavy metal singer.
Worst.
Yeah, you're going to upset You're going to upset the single-digit listeners, but you got to do it.
There are vocalists that I think are not very good singers, and then there are vocalists. Their sound just turns me off. The way they sing.
Who's the one who turns you off the most? I
must admit, I never really got on. This is going to be horrid. I just don't get on with Bruce Dickinson's vocals. I just don't.
Neither do I.
I just don't get on. His range is incredible, but I just find it grating. It's almost like he's trying too hard. Turn it down a notch. You can clearly sing, and it's just silly. I just don't. It grates me. I'm not saying he's the worst.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was worse because that was the question I asked you.
There are some people who I hope aren't listening to this because...
Yeah. Take a bow, Rod Smallwood. Never mind. We can't all have the same taste. But I, to be fair, on my list, I'd written down my list of worst singers. I put 3 down. I'm afraid Bruce Dickinson was on there. And I think what's weird is when Maiden were more of a metal band than a prog metal band as they are now, I thought his voice was more suited. Number of the Beast, it was more suited. I think as they've gone on and gone more and more prog and more 118-minute songs, it's just got worse for me. You know, the only thing we can say about that, Hunnsy, though, is bring back Diana.
Oh, we had a T-shirt with that on, didn't we?
I think we did. Just to annoy Rod.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bruce was on my list, but the other one that I'm going to bring up, it's kind of a weird one. Not the worst singer of all time, but possibly the worst metal singer right now is...
Oh, this is interesting.
You know the program The Masked Singer? Of course you do.
Yes.
Yeah, so The Masked Singer, which you and I watch in the UK, but obviously there's an American version of the show. And I saw a clip on social media the other day of the great reveal of the guy I've been singing, and it turned out to be none other than Sebastian Bach.
He was a phenomenal singer back in the day.
Well, I tell you what, he's a shocking singer now. They had him reprising a little bit of Youth Gone Wild, which obviously is funny in and of itself, isn't it? You don't see the irony of a man in his mid-50s singing Youth Gone Wild. There's something wrong with you. As we always used to laugh at the time, it was going to be Youth Gone Mild at our age.
Yeah.
He was singing Youth Gone Wild while dressed as a carrot or whatever it was. And my God, it was just disgraceful, really bad.
Sad to hear that story of Sebastian, though. I will check it out on social media and report back on my thoughts.
Oh, report back. I see what you did there.
Yeah, I see what I did there. See? Yeah, that's my day job coming through.
Yeah, beautiful work. I'll tell you what, though, I've got a quick update for you before we go, Hunnsy. Important update.
Oh.
You know what I'm going to mention, don't you? Lars Rocket update.
Lars Rocket.
Remember last episode we were talking about the whole infamous Lars Rocket T-shirt incident, and if you don't know what that is, you've got to go back and listen to episode 2. But we did manage to establish contact with Lars Rocket vocalist Michael Coons. The great news is Michael came back to us and has agreed in principle to do an interview for the podcast, which I'm very excited about. But now I sent him some details about how we do things and the kind of stuff we're talking about, and the trailer's gone cold. No reply from Michael, no. But I'm a man of faith. I believe in the power of rock, and I believe that Michael will eventually get back to it. Do you remember he said he was a barman at the Beverly Hills Hilton or something like that, didn't he? So
yes, I do.
He's probably a very busy man. So
Yeah.
we're not giving up hope, and we still believe that he should be our first interview, and the single-digit listener will be beside himself as and when. I think for one day we've covered a lot of ground. It was vocal-tastic. Hunnsy, always a pleasure, never a chore. You get back to listening to some Judas Priest. Give me a Rob Halford kind of scream to say goodbye to the single-digit listener, and I'll be catching you for the very next episode. Free will burning! I'll tell you what, is that Memorex? I could have sworn.
See you later. See ya. Bye.